Welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. This is episode 401. My name is Marcus K. Jr. Shout out to everybody who has been a supporter of this show. Shout out to everybody who has been part of this movement. This thing that I started is a movement. It's a movement towards healing. It's a movement towards evolution. It's a movement towards taking control over our destinies and what we manifest and what we create. Because indeed, we create our own experiences, and we have a lot of power in controlling the cycles we find ourselves in. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the psychology of cheating or infidelity and sort of my philosophy or my approach when decoding it, when analyzing it. You know, when we find ourselves in patterns of attracting certain types over and over again, finding ourselves either attracting people who cheat chronically, or find ourselves motivated to cheat or having a compulsion, to do so. Just based on my observation, I've kind of narrowed it down, to maybe like one core motivation. So we're gonna discuss that tonight. But definitely, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Shout out to Facebook as well, for anybody watching and tuning in there, and Twitch as well. It's actually my first time broadcasting live there. So shout out to everybody who's tuning in to get the information and just be able to have new self-awareness or have things make sense in a different way. Because when it comes to cheating, when it comes to infidelity, it's not everybody's favorite word by any stretch, and it's not something that we want to experience. So if there's any cycles involved, we want to get to the root of that. We want to get to the core of why you may find yourself attracting certain types of people in repetition, and what's at the basis of the process. What's at the basis of cheating, period, right? Because for me, whenever I try to analyze something, whenever I try to figure out or decode something, I like to look for the simplest explanation and as many commonalities as I can possibly find. What's going on, Eric? How you doing? I try to look for as many commonalities as possible, and to see it across the board, and to see what makes the most sense when we're looking at it. And here's what I came up with. So I believe, based on just my observations, that when it comes to and when I say cheating, I mean in a repetitious or a pattern. So people that you meet who have created a pattern of cheating, almost a compulsion. So this isn't based on observations of or based on isolated incidents, right? This is for me. This is based on this being somebody's go-to coping mechanism when things go a certain way, or somebody's freeing themselves sexually or not being satisfied, and then turning to this as their go-to option when it comes to relationships, committed relationships, etc. Hey, Wilmer Black, how you doing? So for me, at its core, and not in absolutes, but at its core, it comes down to fear. And I'll explain what I mean by that, because there's multiple areas where fear shows its head upon personal analysis of the process of cheating, right? So let's start on, let's not even, before we even get to the perpetrator side, let's start with the victim side, the person who is being cheated on. So what type of elements would have to be present for someone to continuously attract people who cheat as a pattern of behavior? And again, this isn't about isolated incidents. I'm reporting personally, based on observation, on patterns. So when we talk about cheating as a pattern, right? Dawn, how you doing? Welcome. So as a pattern, what kind of elements would have to be present, or would likely be present, when we're talking about somebody who repeatedly attracts people who are unfaithful to them, right? Let's start with abandonment and what that means, right? So if you've encountered abandonment, as youth, as a child, likely that caused you, or awakened a core belief that you are unlovable to a degree, or that the love that's supposed to be yours is withheld from you, and not given to you, basically. And in a sense, when you think of abandonment, and you think of also, even if, let's say, your father or mother or whichever parent was in your life, let's say if it's a 2-parent household, and the parent favors a sibling over you or shows favoritism, right? This communicates to your mental and your emotional just way of being, that there's competition. You should expect competition, and you can't have love that's only yours, or that your somebody else will be chosen over you. Getting used to a feeling that someone else will be chosen over you, or you will be overlooked for another person who is deemed to be better, deemed to be more skilled, more talented, look better, whatever the metric is. But having that foundation built on expecting, right, to be looked over, and someone choosing someone else over you, and so that breeds sometimes scarcity mindset, competition, right, and a level of insecure. So if these abandonment, favoritism, these things create insecurity, and that becomes one of the core elements that rotates within you, right? So it may not come out at work, it may not come out in your career course of life, but if that happened, you'll find it in the relationships. You'll find it when you get into the dating space. This lack of security, this scarcity mindset, this almost expectation of someone choosing someone else over you, being disloyal, but betraying the trust, right, and choosing other women or other people over you, and your love not being secure, the relationship not being secure between you and a partner. So if this element never left, yet it grows every time you encounter a new person who is unfaithful to you, it grows more. This insecurity grows, and whatever internally reigns dominant, or carries a large amount of real estate inside of you and rotates, it becomes part of your thinking process, it becomes part of how you feel on a normal basis when it comes to relationships, when it comes to dating and stuff like that. that will put you in a space to seek out people who connect with that mindset, with that core belief system. So if you expect everyone to eventually abandon you, cheat on you, or choose other people, or not give or not provide security in a relationship, you will consistently choose the types of people who will further that mission, right? That or that mindset, who will fall right in sync. If you think the world or your worldview, rather, when it comes to dating and things like that, is that it's you don't feel secure and people are going to hurt you or going to cheat on you, then you will find yourself in sync with your belief system. And what's worse, you'll be more comfortable there than anywhere else, because in spaces where you do somehow connect with people who don't necessarily want to cheat on you, or are honest and forthcoming and aren't that type of person, then enter in self-sabotage. Now, you will be compelled to push that person to abandon you, so that your core belief has its match, so that you will be proven right once again. So you do things illogical and emotionally based to push the person away from you, or accusing them, or just generating a lot of insecurity. After a certain point, the person's not gonna want to deal with it, and then you can say, see, they always leave, they never stick around, and that makes the insecurity grow larger. Now, this isn't to blame the victim. This is more so giving you an understanding. If you are somebody who has been attracting time and time again people who have a pattern of cheating, and I'm talking about consciously, not I got drunk and I don't know what happened. I'm talking about like consciously making decisions and moves and deception, planning trips, all of those different kinds of things on a rotating basis. And this person is this is a part of what they're doing. This is a part of their pattern in relationships, so to speak. So that's how your personality gets synced up with that personality. And then you find yourself right in line with the same cycle over and over again. Now, let's get to the psychology of the perpetrators, right? What drives the cheater? What makes a person, develop a pattern and continue a pattern of cheating? And again, I'm talking about, compulsively, like this is a part of what they do, not necessarily situational, where things get bad. But that's even another angle too. When things get bad for a person to choose somebody else. Again, let's bring it back to the theme. The theme is fear, right? So with the people who get cheated on, for those of you who may be in that situation, the fear of insecurity, the fear of abandonment keeps you locked in and accepting of individuals with those red flags. The fear of and then also too, what makes you self-sabotage is the fear of the unknown. If somebody comes in who's not cheating, who gives none of the signs, who never did it before, who's always honest, that's fear of unknown, and that becomes sabotage. And then so you kind of lock yourself into, again, fear is a prison. You lock yourself into that space of attracting and going through the motions time and time again. Now, how does fear connect with people who cheat compulsively, right? Where does that come from? I'll give you a couple of examples that I've observed over time, right? Now, I'm speaking from the men. I'm talking about men, not to say that men are the only ones that cheat, not saying that, but I'm saying for some of these examples, I've seen it more so in men, right? So I'm gonna give you two real quick. One is, what I call preemptive cheating, right? So, for example, let's say a particular man was cheated on before. Maybe he was cheated on in his marriage or his previous relationship, or maybe a relationship, some years ago. As a protective mechanism or a fear-based protective mechanism, this person may start to create a personal just pattern of cheating in each relationship after that. Not because the relationship was messed up, or not because their needs weren't fulfilled, right? More so because this is just how I put these things together. More so, I would argue, because that person has that fear of being cheated on, and in order to mitigate that fear, even if the person they're dating has never cheated on anybody before, given no signs that they would be cheating whatsoever, that fear is still there. So as a preemptive strike, they start to be unfaithful. And not just one time, multiple times, multiple places, in an effort to slow the blow or lower the impact of a potential situation where their partner would cheat on. Now, again, you may think, maybe thinking like, damn, that's illogical. Or that's a stretch or a reach. But I would counter that by saying, what are the impacts of pain in you that have made you do some of the most illogical things, some of the most ridiculous, on paper, most ridiculous things that you could do, or how many reaches have you, how long are your arms? What's your wingspan? How many reaches have you done in your life, right? We've all been in these different situations where we've acted out of what people would think is reality because of the fear. That's really my biggest point. The fear drives it. And just over observation, this is what I've found is like, because the effects of fear as an entity, I always look for it first. If something is happening a lot and it's destructive, self-destructive, or destructive of other, especially loved ones, I gotta look for that. What's going on? Is fear at the bottom? Because fear is a great motivator. It's a survival mechanism. It has control over our physiological experience. Sometimes you can feel fear before you can think it. You might not know what the hell's going on, but if your heart starts beating and you start sweating, something, it ain't them jalapenos you ate before. It might be something else. It might be somebody in here, in the house, or creeping around, or those instinctual elements are there, but you do know that they can reach an unreasonable point. And that's what I would argue for that particular type. The preemptive, kind of almost setting the stage, right? So if she cheats on me, I done got 50 already, 50 of them. Almost like when they caught Tiger Woods red-handed, and it was like 5,000 women, and he was just on camera like, I don't know, that's a whole lot. So it's that goes to show the compulsion of it as well, right? Because look how deep the wound was when that person could have got cheated on one time, and it could have been in college, but that wound stretched so far that not even 50, 60 women could fill that up. Nothing. Not a committed relationship, not the reality of a committed relationship with a new person with no ties to that previous person who cheated on. None of that. But that's reality. That's what an observer could see. But for somebody who's internally dealing with that, it might be a little bit different. So the next type of cheater, right? the intimidated cheater. So this is another one that I observe relationships. This is what I do for a living. So this is just my conclusion. Don't take this as a law, but if it makes sense to you, God bless. Take it with you. But the intimidated cheater, what does that mean, right? For me, It's when you have a situation where, let's say, the man and woman dynamic, and I don't want to keep hitting on the guys like that, but it's a male point of view, and we'll get into more stuff in a minute. Not to say women don't cheat whatsoever, so that's not where we're going with it. But so the intimidated cheater, who is this person? This is somebody who gets with a woman. They have a relationship, things like that, and at a certain point, that woman achieves higher, makes more money, gets more notoriety, gets more attention, gets more support, right? That particular woman gets elevated somehow, financially, fame, something. Now, the male feels upstaged and feels, to a degree, maybe emasculated, and now is in fear of the sanctity of his own manhood, his own image, right? So now his manhood is threatened because in areas that he had maybe wanted to achieve, in areas that he wanted to be in, spaces, money, providership, these different things that maybe were central to him as manhood traits, and then to have the woman upstage in that space. Here's where the cheating comes in. Now, I just said, okay, let's say in this scenario, the woman somehow levels up money-wise. Maybe the fear of not being needed, the fear of being obsolete, right? Less than a man, right? Makes more money or more something. So, or fear of losing control. Now, if this particular type of man was predicated upon control by virtue of having money or being the breadwinner or having notoriety or something to hold over somebody's head to basically keep them in line, and then that very thing, the table shift, and that thing is, they become upstaged to that degree, the cheating becomes weaponized. This isn't about sex. This case isn't about sex. It isn't about we're arguing, we're distant. No, this is weaponized. This is intentional, because how do you hurt a woman? Well, in this case, you can't hurt her financially, right? You can't pull the plug on the money because she got the money. You can't pull the plug on her image because she got the fame or whatever's going on right there. She has the support system. So you hurt her emotionally because she carries emotion. She's an emotional being, right? So you want to hurt her emotionally. So how do you hurt a woman emotionally? What's the easiest go-to way to hurt a woman who you're in a committed relationship with emotionally? You go off and become unfaithful, right? And in this particular case, you have weaponized it, and then now you are in the situation that you're in, and it leads me, to just certain, when I think of just celebrity couples and things like that, situations where the woman is the more notable or whatever, and then, and I always suspected, with Jay-Z and Beyonce situation and stuff like that, obviously she's the more notable of the two as far as globally, and even though they're both big, they're both impactful, they're both icons, I think at certain points he may feel it, may feel that. I don't know. I'm not saying for sure, but I would look at that. you know, and I think it happens from that scale, and I think it happens all the way down, you know, to the average person who may experience that and may react to that feeling of insecurity in that way, or intimidation in that way, and then retaliate when it comes to sexuality. You know, another one, you know, you have the fear of commitment, right? You know, so cheating as an outgrowth of an internal fear of the vulnerability of being in a committed relationship, because the committed relationship signifies a a huge vulnerability and the risk of having your heart broken, being abandoned, and all of these things that fear keeps in the forefront. See, if you lead with this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, you begin to cause it. You begin to create that self-fulfilling prophecy and bring these things into being. It happens like clockwork. And so when it comes to commitment, what does commitment signify? When you start to look at, you know, these different individuals who, if anybody falls into that category, you got to look at, okay, well, fear of commitment. What does commitment signify to this particular person? Because this word, you know, it can mean a lot of different things. So, and then we also have, you know, the person who, you know, had just sexually based, sexual minded, or, you know, what if it's driven like that, fear still comes into play if that person is if it's just purely sexual, because that person still utilized or responded to fear by not saying anything about it. You know what I'm saying? If for example, if I know that I personally need to have sex 5,000 times a day, or I need to have sex with a variety of women to feel normal, and this is how I move, but I choose to date one person who's, you know, and predicated upon monogamy, but I don't say all of those needs. I don't say, like, you know, yeah, I got an issue. You know, I can't really do the monogamy thing like that from the sexual standpoint. I need sexual freedom, or whatever the case is. There's still fear involved, because you're not explaining what you need to happen, because of fear of rejection. See, or fear of that person rejecting your, you know, that being a deal breaker, or fear of being either judged for it, or being left, or not being able to have that person. So even having a cake and eating it got some fear to it. If you're moving around in the deception, if deception is a big part of the game, because otherwise you would just say like it is, like, hey, I got it. This is what needs to happen. Are you with that? No. Okay, maybe we can't move forward then. But I think a lot of times in relationships, too much bending and people trying to fit in with what they think is expected, and forcing themselves into positions they can't uphold long term, or they can, or even if, like, later down the line some things come up or whatever, that communication, you know, would be paramount, even if it meant that the relationship had to dissolve. I think a lot of, you know, just in general, I think just people, period, we have to develop a culture, or just an expectation, or just a new normal of basically normalizing being accepting of the consequences of our authenticity. Authenticity and transparency have consequences, but what if the consequences were positive in the long run, but we keep preventing the positive consequences in the long run, because in the short run we want to fake who the hell we are. We want to act like we're somebody else. We want to act like we're not who we actually are. We want to take what you say you like and try to fit inside of that box, where we don't fit in there. We're trying to contort ourselves into these different expectations that we know we can't uphold. We're trying to push forward and save something that ain't worth saving, because at the end of the day, we're both not compatible, because if we sat down and told the honest truth to each other, we wouldn't even be together. And who knows, we could have saved 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years just by having certain conversations that are difficult. Yes, there's consequences at the end of any authentic conversation or authentic expression, right? Somebody may be offended by what you like. Somebody may judge what you like, or who you are, what you've been through, or your previous choices, right? But if that person is that way, maybe that ain't the vibe for you. But when we get in these spaces where we need somebody, we need something, can't be alone, gotta link up with somebody, gotta do something. When we get in that space, when we get in that type of zone, that's when we find ourselves in predicaments, because we are moving literally off of fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of isolation, the fear of solitude, all these different things. And the scarcity mindset, right? I better get this one, because another train ain't coming till who knows. So one I'm running, let me hop on this. So I think the overall goal or moral to even just a lot of this, the topic now, is just to be who the hell you are, and keep it honest along the way. I think certain things need, especially if you're looking for a committed relationship. Now, if you just want to be outside, then you kind of do what you want, and if the consequences will hit you, you kind of figure it out along the way. But for the people who follow what I'm doing and who actually are open to, or eventually would like to be in something committed, some long term, things like that. I think part of the lesson is to communicate along the way, and to again develop a new normal and a culture between you based on the relationship of open communication, of being able to say, hey, I'm feeling a little off, the connection ain't really there, what's up? Like, let's talk through it, let's talk solutions, let's talk origins, let's talk triggers. Because not having that conversation could fast forward you into some infidelity situations. It just raises the odds. Not that, we all got freedom of choice, but it just increases the odds, because the less you talking and the more you're avoiding, the more you're distancing within a marriage or a committed relationship, the further you going apart. Where you going? If we together, but we're doing this more and more each day, you eventually going to be out of the zone, out of the radius, and off somewhere else, trying to get what you thought you were supposed to get within the relationship you already in. And then you start crossing lines. Then you find yourself in just this weird emotional space, and building these weird energetic connections that don't give you any clarity, because there's overlap. You're in something, blending with something different, thinking that that's the answer to what you lacking over here. You think you get it over there. Then you got the 80-20 rule and all that. So now you got a bunch of percentages of a couple of people, and you can't operate like that. That's extra confusing. That's confusing, and it's not necessary. If the communication is there and the standard is put in place to say, hey, throughout this thing, let's not go in with false expectations of what a relationship or what marriage is actually going to look like. I think a lot of times people think it's going to be straight linear. So because we're having a lot of fun as a couple before we get married, all we got to do is the same shit we doing now. We do the same shit. It's always going to look the same. And so let's just do the same type of stuff. And then let's not ever prepare for when things change, right? You know, children come in, change. People pass away, that's a change. Losing your job is a change. COVID, pandemic, different policies, these things shift. There's shifts. Things happen, things occur that are unforeseen. If things that are unforeseen occur, how do we handle that as a couple? What are we gonna do when that happens? How do we find ourselves in an adaptive space to consistently weave in and out of whatever the situations may come about and end up great on the other side? It's very much possible. You don't have to have a list of all the potential. Okay, zombie apocalypse, Revelation 13. You don't have to know every and anything that's going to possibly happen, but you do know, or would like to know, or need to know what's our game plan when communication gets strained? What's our game plan when things get busy? What's our game plan when we get rocked by some kind of loss or something happens? We got to figure out how to lean in on to each other, because a lot of times two single people get together, they have a lot of fun together, they think it's a vibe. But the problem is they both have individualistic mindsets. So you can be married and still have single mindset. So we're married, I go through something, I distance from you. And I don't explain it. I just come in with the energy. I come in with this depressive energy. I come in with this hostile energy. I come in the house and the rain cloud is over my head. But I just, nothing. I'm good. I'm cool, right? You do that enough times, you push somebody away enough times. Come on, man. What do you expect to happen? Because at some point, I don't want no marriage where I can't sit there and say, hey, man, today was fucked up. All right? Now, I may come up with a game plan to fix it, but I'm not going to sit there and just eat life solo if I chose a partner. Why would I choose a partner only to give silent treatment and deal with life on my own? I could do that as a single person. I'm single now. I know how to operate as a single human being. But if I choose to put myself into a marriage, I'm going to operate in a marriage. I'm going to operate with a partner because I have a partner and I chose a partner. And God was there. Ain't that how marriages work? Isn't God floating amongst you? Under God, under Pledge of Allegiance. It's all in the writing. It's all in there. When they, the pastor, it's all there. So if you get it and you choose it and you make those choices, there has to be a process of working yourself into being union-minded. Because the last thing you want is that roommate syndrome, where y'all are just two single people cohabitating. Y'all might come together, watch a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of Hulu around, and then But when problems arise, y'all in separate areas. When problems arise, y'all don't even communicate. When problems arise, you go back to your single-minded coping mechanisms that I would argue aren't necessary, right? So keep these things in mind. These are, these are just jewels. I'm, what do I know? You know what I mean? I don't know nothing, but I do know that I really appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. All of you guys who have supported, in the long run. Again, this is episode 401. Straight, no days off, 401 days straight. It's a blessing. And I would do it 1,000 more times, and we're gonna keep this thing rolling, for sure. Shout out to everybody who's been tuning in on Clubhouse as well. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, whatever platform you guys are watching this on. Be sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. It's Happiness Decoded 101, all one word. I'm having a blast, man. So this is a lot of fun. Feel free to donate as well. Follow on IG, hit the coaching page, patreon.com/Happiness Decoded 101. It's been a pleasure. I will check you guys tomorrow night. Y'all stay blessed, stay positive, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. I see you behind the scenes, and I know you guys are, continuing to progress, continuing to want more, continuing to make different moves in your life, and working to discover purpose, and eventually manifesting that person that's right for you, and that resonates with your highest self. So continue to keep growing and keep evolving, and I'll be here for you guys as always. So you guys have a great night.